Welcome to Crime Cafe, and today's case is going to be a little bit different. I'm starting a new series called Escaped, and it'll be about the victims in situations where they escape, they survive, and they get out of their terrible situation and they live to tell their story. I want to bring these stories to Crime Cafe because the content that I cover is it's so heavy. I think it's important to talk about the survivors as well, the ones who made it out, and a lot of times we can learn something from their stories. They deserve to have their stories told. They've been through something extremely traumatic and they survived it, and I want to tell their story. If you have any stories like that you would like to see covered, definitely, like always, leave them in the comments below or email them to me. This escaped video is going to be about Rosalyn McGinnis. I do want to add a disclaimer. There's going to be talk of child predator, all the things that come along with that. And if that's something that is a trigger for you, definitely click out of the video, take care of yourself, and I hope to see you in a different one. With all that being said, grab yourself your coffee or your tea or whatever it is you want to drink, sit back, relax, and let's dive in. Rosalyn had dreams, like all of us do at just 10 years old. She dreamed of finishing school, going to college, becoming a veterinarian, and maybe even a violin teacher. All of that was stripped away when a man, if you can call him that, Henry Piet, moved into her town. Henry was a child predator, and he sought out a vulnerable family, Rosalyn's family. Her mother was a single mother trying to make ends meet when she met Henry. Henry swooped in to save them all, and shortly after meeting Rosalyn's mother, she married Henry. People refer to him as her stepfather because that's the role he promised to take on. He wasn't her stepfather. Henry chose to manipulate Rosalyn's mother just to get to her. 10-year-old Rosalyn was his ultimate target. The family was living in Springfield, Missouri, when Rosalyn was sound asleep in her bed. She felt someone touching her, and when she woke up, she saw what she thought was Henry walking away from her bed. She fell back asleep. She woke up the next day, and she thought maybe it was all just a bad dream. She wasn't really sure if anything actually did happen or it was all in her head. So with those thoughts, she just pushed it to the back of her mind, didn't think much of it. It wasn't until the second time it happened that she became aware of what her reality really was. During Henry's grooming process on Rosalyn, he made sure to let her know that if anything ever happened to their family, like if they ever got separated for any reason at all, he gave an example like if her mother had to go somewhere, if she had to leave her kids, her and her two younger brothers behind, he would get them. He would find them and bring them together, and he would take care of them until their mother returned. So he made sure to put that in her head. At 10 years old, you can think, my mom might go somewhere. My mom might actually leave. Something might happen. When you're that age, you don't know what the real world is like. You don't know that that is a weird statement, that it doesn't make sense. At such a young age, you think, okay, we might be in danger, or mom might need to go get help somewhere, and I might be left alone with this man. It was a cold day in January, and 12-year-old Rosalyn was just leaving school when Henry's oldest son approached her. He said, "Dad sent me to come get you." And without hesitation, Rosalyn went with him because she knew that that was one of the plans. When Rosalyn met up with Henry, she asked him, "What about my brothers? What about my mom? Where is everybody? What's going on?" He said that he couldn't bring them, that it's just too late. And he told her that now you ran away and the police are after you. So now if the police find you, if they know where you are, you're gonna get in trouble. And he went on to tell her that if they caught her, they were gonna know that they were having sex. Remember, she's 12 years old now at this point, so she's been preyed on for 2 years. He would tell her that if they caught her and they found out about everything that they have been doing, like it was her fault, that they would put her in an insane asylum and she would have to be stuck there until she was 21 years old. He's quoted saying, "You think only one person will touch you? They are all going to molest you." Rosalyn describes the way that she felt at just 12 years old, her life being ripped from her, her life being completely destroyed. She felt alone, scared, and like she was completely trapped. She felt that now she was stuck with this evil man. He would word things in ways to blame her, like she asked for everything that was happening to her, that it was her fault. that she was going through this and that he was going to keep her safe, because if the police found her, she would get in trouble and be put away and, you know, more abused than what he does himself. So he would act like he was protecting her, like he was saving her in some sick way. There was a search for Rosalyn after she went missing, but they came up with absolutely nothing. After she was abducted, Rosalyn was forced to dye her hair black. She was forced to wear fake glasses, and Henry would call her different names. It was usually Christina or Stephanie. They traveled continuously. They were all over the United States. They never stayed in one place too long. But Henry would always bring her back to her home state in Oklahoma to write letters to her family. He wanted them to keep thinking that she was in that state. He didn't want them to be looking for her anywhere else. Henry had 3 of his children with them, and he told them that Rosalyn was now their new mother. He had his son marry them in a van, and that she was to be their new mom. Over the years, Rosalyn claims that she was repeatedly raped, stabbed, choked unconscious, shot, and beaten with baseball bats while being held captive. She has up to 21 scars on the top of her head, and they're all about this big. After moving around the US for a while, Henry took them to Mexico in 2000. Once they were there, they lived in a small tent in a rural village. Rose had to take on fake identities, and she earned money by begging on the streets. She begged for money, she begged for food. She did this until she eventually learned how to make and sell coffee, honey, and homemade ice cream. Over the 19 years, Rosalyn lived in this hellish nightmare with Henry. He forced her to give birth to 9 of his children. And she did this with absolutely no advice, no guidance from any medical professional whatsoever. And the first pregnancy happened when she was 15 years old. To protect her children's mental and emotional state, she never told them about her situation. She never let on that she was abducted and didn't want to be there, and she was there against her will. They had no idea. At the time of Rosalyn's escape, she had children ranging from 2 to 17. And like I said, they did not know anything about their mother's past and what she had been going through. And when they did find out, after they escaped and she told them what happened, they were in shock, especially the older children who could actually grasp their mother's situation. Henry abused his and Rosalyn's children as well. He would emotionally and physically abuse them. He would call them names. He would tell them that they didn't deserve to be alive. He would call them animals. He told them that the only reason they were still alive was because their mother was there. And when he would start to hit them, Rosalyn would run in front of them and protect them. And he would abuse her. She was abused daily. And she's quoted saying that any kind of abuse you can think of, he did to me. In June 2016, 19 years of enduring this secretive, abusive life, Rosalyn and her children were living in a tent in Mexico when she finally saw her chance to escape. Now, don't get me wrong, she did try to escape multiple times and failed, and she would get badly beaten for each attempt. It got harder to build up the courage and the strength over the years because she did have multiple children and she refused to leave any of them. So it was hard for her to imagine escaping with these babies. Rosalyn was put through an extremely sketchy surgery to take out her gallbladder. And immediately after, Henry had her cleaning the house and moving around, like he would not let her rest. And it was then that Rosalyn said, quote, "I knew that if I didn't get out of there, I'd either go insane or I would end up dying and leaving my kids with this man." Rosalyn met a really nice couple, an American woman named Lisa and her husband Ian, who was from England. She would see this couple often because they owned and opened up a restaurant right near the area that Rosalyn would sell her homemade ice cream. And one day Henry was drinking pretty heavily, which wasn't out of the ordinary at all. Lisa had brought over some leftover birthday cake for the kids. As Henry stumbled his way into another room, Lisa looked at Rosalyn and said to her, "I know there's something wrong. If you could ever get away, I will help you." It was 1 month later Henry was passed out from another day of drinking. Rosalyn got the courage to grab all of her children and she went to Lisa and Ian's home. She knew where she lived and she got that courage to go and knock on her front door. As soon as she got the kids settled into Lisa's home, she sat her down and told her story. And she began with, Stephanie isn't my real name and Bill isn't his real name. And Lisa asked, well, who are you then? And Rosalyn said, well, he is my stepfather. His real name is Henry Piet, and I am Rosalyn McGinnis. And he started molesting me at 10, and he stole me from school when I was 12. Shocked, but so grateful to help, Lisa immediately got online and she looked up missing persons posters, and there was Rosalyn. Rosalyn told Lisa that she had been waiting almost 20 years for just one person to do the math. It's one person to figure out that a 15 or 16-year-old girl shouldn't have that many babies. Lisa then called the Center for Missing and Exploited Children in the United States, and they, along with many other people, helped get Rosalyn and her children to safety. She was finally able to get to the US Embassy with 8 of her 9 children. One of her sons did run away, and he was having a really hard time with the other children. He was doing some inappropriate things, and he did run away. He was later reconnected with Rosalyn. Rosalyn was quoted saying that it felt so nice to finally tell someone the truth. It took the authorities close to a year to track down Henry. And Rosalyn would say, it's hard to describe when you've been through so much trauma in your life, especially when the man who did this to you is not caught. You're always looking over your shoulder thinking that he's going to show up and take you again. Henry Piet was arrested in September of 2017 when he visited the US Embassy in Mexico City to attempt to get a passport. Henry was arrested and extradited back to the US, where he faced multiple criminal charges. In 2017, he spoke to a local news station and he was claiming that 99% of Rosalyn's allegations weren't true and that his and her children were involved with the Mexican mafia and that they made up these stories about him because Rosalyn turned them against him. Of course, none of that is true, and no one believed him. And ultimately, Henry was sentenced to life in prison at the age of 63, and that was in 2019. He was ordered to pay $50,000 in fines and $50,067 to Rosalyn and her children, which I think is nothing. I don't think that's enough at all. What he took away from her is priceless. The U.S. attorney said, I know this verdict cannot heal the countless wounds inflicted on the defendant. It should prevent him from ever inflicting more. After nearly 2 decades of abuse, Rosalyn and her children continue to work on their recovery. With help of the family, they were able to move into their own home, and Rosalyn has received assistance from fellow abduction survivor JC Duggard, who founded the JC Foundation for Victim Aid. Rosalyn plans to study criminal law, and she really wants to help other missing persons, and she wants to help other children avoid her fate. She has said, many of these cases are children who became adults and lost hope, feel forgotten, and are still suffering. I know their need to be saved because I dreamed of someone finding me. She said, my children and I suffer daily as a result of this predator's abuse. Now we look forward to continuing our newfound life of freedom and moving forward, having a lifetime of happiness and success. Rosalyn is living in the Midwest with her children, and they all do receive treatment for the trauma that they've been through, for their PTSD. They are all trying to cope and have the best life that they can possibly have. I will link in the description some interviews that Rosalyn did have, and if you watch her speak about her experience, she is strong. She is a strong woman, and it's incredible. It's really incredible how, truly amazing she is. Watching her speak about her story actually made me cry because her therapist was on with her when she was speaking, and the therapist was talking about these abductees and when they have children and what happens in those situations when the one who's trying to survive has children with the one who's abusing them, and what happens to them as mothers, and that it's no longer about their survival and their needs or wants or trauma, and it's about their kids. And they just become like freaking super women, man. Like, she was 12. She was 12 and she had 9 of his babies and fought for every single one of them and made it out. I think she's amazing. She really is amazing. And for her to spare her children and never let them in on her story until she got them out is incredible to me. I think she's amazing. And if you watch her speak about her experience, I think you will find her amazing too. That's all I have on Rosalyn McGinnis' story. I think it's fascinating. She is a true hero, and she deserves all of the good things in the world. And I hope they can find happiness and as much peace as possible and just continue to live. Let me know what you think of her story and what you think of her. And if you have any other survivor stories, I would love you to suggest them in the comments or email them to me. Definitely like this video if you want more of this Escaped series, and hit the subscribe and the bell. It'll notify you every single time I upload a new video. And like always, guys, thank you so much for giving me your time.